Part 1: The Exploration Ship. Liberty moved quietly through the darkness of space. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, looking at the reports on his screen. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he didn't care. The mission was supposed to be simple and boring. They would map this region of space, take some samples, and go back home in 6 months. Nothing exciting ever happened on mapping missions. That's what Jake had told his crew when they left Earth. He was wrong. Lisa Chen worked at the navigation station. She had been doing this job for 5 years and knew her instruments better than anyone. When something unusual appeared on her screen, she noticed it right away. A strange energy reading was coming from beyond the colorful gas clouds of the nebula. It didn't match anything in their database. "Captain, I'm picking up something weird," Lisa said, her fingers moving across her controls. Jake looked up from his coffee. "Weird how?" "There's an energy signature about 2 million kilometers from here. I've never seen anything like it." Jake thought about it for a moment. They were supposed to stick to their planned route, but this was exactly the kind of thing they were out here to find. "Change course. Let's take a look." The Liberty turned and headed toward the signal. As they got closer, the readings became stronger and more complex. Whatever was out there, it was big. Really big. Danny Price, the ship's engineer, called up from the engine room. "Hey, Captain, I'm seeing some strange readings down here too." "Whatever that thing is, it's putting out a lot of power." "Can you tell what kind of power?" Jake asked. "No idea. It's not anything I recognize." The Liberty pushed through the last of the nebula's gas clouds. When they came out the other side, every person on the bridge stopped what they were doing. Some of them stood up. Others just stared with their mouths open. In front of them was a sight that shouldn't exist. Hundreds of massive space stations orbited around 2 suns. The stations were connected by streams of light, and thousands of ships moved between them in organized patterns. Some of the ships were so large they made Earth's biggest vessels look like toys. "Oh my God," whispered Amy Peterson from the science station. "Are those what I think they are?" Jake couldn't speak for a moment. His brain was trying to process what his eyes were seeing. "Lisa, please tell me those are our ships." Lisa's voice was tight with tension. "Negative, Captain. Those designs don't match anything in our records. Sir, I think we're looking at aliens. A lot of aliens." The bridge was silent except for the quiet beeping of the instruments. Jake had dreamed about finding alien life since he was a kid. Every human had. But nobody expected it to look like this. This wasn't a small outpost or a single alien ship. This was an entire civilization, and it was huge. "Battle stations," Jake said quietly. "Don't do anything aggressive, but I want us ready for anything." 3 sleek ships detached from the nearest station and came toward them. They were beautiful in a strange way, with smooth curves and silver surfaces that seemed to shimmer. Definitely not human design. The Liberty's communication system crackled. A voice spoke in a language that sounded like music mixed with grinding metal. The computer started working on a translation. After a few seconds, the words became clear. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted space. Identify yourself immediately or you will be detained." Jake took a deep breath. This was it. First contact. He pressed the button to open a channel. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human exploration vessel Liberty. We come in peace. We were conducting research and didn't know this area was occupied. This was an accident." There was a pause. Then the alien voice came back. "Human, species not in database. You will follow us to station quarters for processing. Do not attempt to flee or engage weapons. Compliance is mandatory." Greg Hayes, the security officer, moved closer to Jake's chair. "Captain, recommendations?" "We do what they say," Jake replied. "We're outnumbered and outgunned. Besides, they haven't shot at us yet. That's a good sign." The 3 alien ships moved into formation around the Liberty. It was clear they were escorting the human ship, making sure it went where they wanted it to go. As they got closer to the stations, the crew could see more details. Each station was a small city in space. They could see windows, docking bays, and what looked like gardens under transparent domes. Ships of every imaginable shape moved in and out of the stations. Some had wings, others were spheres, and some didn't look like ships at all. "Captain, I'm counting at least 40 different ship designs," Lisa reported. "If those all belong to different species, then this place is some kind of hub." "A meeting place for aliens," Amy added. "This is incredible." Jake wanted to share their excitement, but he was too worried. They had just stumbled into someone else's territory without permission. That was bad in any culture. The Liberty was guided into a massive docking bay. The bay was so large that 100 ships the size of the Liberty could have fit inside with room to spare. They were directed to a small platform on one side. As the ship settled onto the docking pad, Jake stood up and straightened his uniform. "Lisa, send a message back to Earth. Tell them what we found. Amy, Greg, you're with me. Danny, you have the ship. If anything goes wrong, you leave immediately. Don't wait for us." Danny's face appeared on the screen from the engine room. "Sir, we're not going to leave you here." "That's an order, Danny. Earth needs to know about this no matter what happens to us." Jake, Amy, and Greg walked to the airlock. Through the window, they could see the docking bay. Several figures were waiting for them. They were tall and thin with pale blue skin. Their eyes were large and amber-colored. They wore uniforms that looked official. "Ready?" Jake asked. "Not even a little bit," Greg replied. "Me neither," Amy said. Jake smiled despite his nervousness. "Good, that makes 3 of us. Let's go meet our neighbors." The airlock opened and the 3 humans stepped out into a galaxy that was much more crowded than they had ever imagined. Behind them, the Liberty sat quietly in the docking bay. Above them, thousands of aliens went about their daily business, completely unaware that humanity had just joined the galactic community. And somewhere in the command center of the station, alarms were going off. A new species had been detected, a species with faster than light travel, a species that had never been contacted before. The Valdran Imperium was about to meet humanity. Neither side was ready for what would happen next. Part 2, the inside of station quarters looked like something from a dream. Jake Morrison walked slowly, trying to take everything in at once. The corridors were wide and tall, with ceilings that curved upward. Strange lights floated in the air without any visible support, and everywhere he looked, there were aliens. A creature that looked like a walking tree shuffled past them. Its bark-like skin rustled with each step. Behind it came something that might have been made of liquid metal flowing along the floor. A group of small furry beings with 6 legs scurried by, chattering in high-pitched voices. Amy Peterson grabbed Jake's arm. "Captain, I need to pinch myself. This can't be real. If it's not real, we're all having the same dream," Greg Hayes muttered, his hand resting near his sidearm out of habit. The Valdran escorts led them through the station without speaking. Other aliens stopped to stare at the humans. Some pointed. Others made sounds that might have been laughter or concern. Jake tried to walk with confidence, even though his heart was pounding. They entered a large room filled with desks and screens. It reminded Jake of a government office back on Earth, except everything was designed for bodies that weren't human. The chairs had too many legs or not enough. The desks were at strange heights. Even the air smelled different, like copper mixed with flowers. One of the Valdran gestured toward a desk where another alien sat. This one was older, based on the deeper color of his skin and the way he moved slowly. He looked up at the humans with his amber eyes and made a sound that the translator turned into a sigh. "Another incident report," the alien said, tapping at a holographic screen. "Unauthorized entry, no identification codes, primitive vessel class, unknown species designation." He looked at Jake. "This is highly irregular." "Explain yourselves," Jake stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison. We're from a planet called Earth. We were exploring space near our home system when we detected an energy signature. We came to investigate and found your stations. We had no idea you were here. We didn't mean to break any laws." The Valdran clerk's eyes widened slightly. "You're an uncontacted species? How did you develop faster than light travel without guidance?" "We figured it out ourselves," Amy said with a hint of pride in her voice. "It took us about 40 years to get it working properly." The clerk made a choking sound. 40 years? Most species require centuries of development after first contact before they achieve light-speed travel. He typed rapidly on his screen. "This changes your classification. You're not criminals, merely ignorant of galactic law." "Well, that's a relief," Greg said sarcastically. The clerk didn't seem to notice the tone. "However, ignorance is not a legal defense for territorial violations. You must complete all documentation before you can be released. Please sit." There were no chairs that fit human bodies, so they stood while the clerk asked them hundreds of questions. What was their home planet's location? How many humans existed? What was their government structure? Did they have weapons? What resources did their planet have? Jake answered carefully, giving information that wasn't secret but also not revealing everything. He had a feeling that every word he said was being recorded and analyzed. After 2 hours of questions, the clerk handed them each a device that looked like a smooth stone. These are temporary identification markers. Do not lose them. You'll be assigned a diplomatic liaison who will explain galactic law. Until then, you're confined to the public areas of this station. How long will that take? Jake asked. Processing usually takes 3 to 5 standard cycles. And how long is that in Earth time? The clerk consulted his screen. Approximately 4 to 7 of your days. As they left the office, Jake noticed that word was spreading fast. More aliens were gathering in the corridors trying to get a look at the new species. Some seemed curious. Others looked worried. A few appeared hostile. A reptilian creature with green scales blocked their path. It was shorter than the humans, but much wider, with muscles visible under its skin. I am Cross, merchant of the 3rd tier. I hear you're from an uncontacted world called Earth, is this true? That's right, Jake said cautiously. Cross's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. Fascinating. Tell me, does your world have resources for trade? Rare metals? Biological materials? Cultural items? We're not here to trade, Amy said firmly. Everyone trades eventually, Cross replied. But I respect your caution. Let me give you advice, human to new species. The Valdrin will try to recruit you into their empire. They always do with fresh species. They'll offer protection, technology, access to trade routes. It sounds good, but read the fine print. Once you're in, getting out is nearly impossible. Before Jake could respond, another group of aliens approached. These were Valdrin, but they wore much fancier uniforms than the clerk. The one in front had silver decorations on her chest and a flowing robe that changed colors as she moved. Captain Morrison, I am High Commissioner Velrain, Minister of New Species Integration for the Valdrin Imperium. Welcome to the Galactic community. Her smile looked friendly, but Jake had been in enough political meetings to recognize a sales pitch coming. Thank you, Commissioner. I understand you're from an isolated world. This must all be overwhelming. The Valdrin Imperium exists to help species like yours navigate the complexities of galactic civilization. We offer protection from hostile forces, access to advanced technology, and membership in the largest alliance in this sector. Thousands of species have benefited from joining us. What do you ask in return? Greg asked bluntly. Velrain's smile didn't change. Simple cooperation. Open borders for trade, adherence to imperial law, and participation in mutual defense. Standard terms that benefit everyone involved. Amy crossed her arms. We'll need to discuss this with our government before making any decisions. Of course, Velrain said smoothly. Take all the time you need. Though I should mention that independent species often face challenges. Pirates attack unprotected ships. Territorial disputes arise without imperial mediation. Resources get claimed by stronger powers. The galaxy can be dangerous for those without friends. Jake felt his jaw tighten. This wasn't an offer. It was a threat wrapped in polite words. We appreciate the information, Commissioner. We'll definitely consider it. After Velrain left, Greg leaned close to Jake. Boss, that sounded like a protection racket. That's because it probably is, Jake replied quietly. Come on, let's find somewhere private to talk. They found a viewing area that was empty. Through the transparent wall, they could see ships coming and going from the station. In the distance, the 2 suns cast golden light across everything. So what do? Amy asked. We're way out of our depth here, Jake thought about it. Back on Earth, he'd been trained for many situations. First contact with hostile aliens, first contact with friendly aliens, even first contact with indifferent aliens. But nobody had prepared him for stumbling into a massive empire that expected humanity to just fall in line. We do what humans always do, Jake said finally. We adapt, we learn, and we don't let anyone push us around until we understand what we're dealing with. The Liberty sent the message to Earth? Greg asked. Jake nodded. By now, every government on our planet knows about this. They'll be working on a response. Our job is to survive, gather information, and not commit humanity to anything stupid. They spent the rest of the day exploring the public areas of the station, watching and learning. They saw species trading goods, arguing about treaties, and conducting business in 100 different languages. The station was like a city, but the citizens were from different worlds. That night, sleeping in quarters designed for a species with different body shapes, Jake thought about what Cross had said. The Valdrin wanted them to join. But what if humanity said no? Would they really be left alone? Or would the Empire find ways to force the issue? He made a decision then. When orders came from Earth, he would follow them. But if those orders were to bow down and accept whatever the Valdren offered, he would argue against it with everything he had. Humanity hadn't spent thousands of years climbing up from caves just to kneel to the first aliens they met. Part 3, the message from the Liberty reached Earth after 2 days of travel through quantum communication channels. When it arrived at the Central Command Station in Geneva, the duty officer thought it was a joke at first. Then he read it again. Then he called his supervisor. Within an hour, every major government leader on Earth was in an emergency meeting. President Linda Martinez stood at the head of the conference table, looking at the faces on the screens around her. Leaders from every continent, every major nation, all wearing the same expression of shock and disbelief. "Let me make sure I understand," said Prime Minister Chen from the Asian Coalition. "Captain Morrison found not just aliens but an empire, with thousands of ships and hundreds of star systems?" "That's correct," Martinez replied. "And according to his report, they expect us to join them. They call it protection. Morrison thinks it's more like submission." Defense Coordinator Carlos Rivera brought up holographic displays showing what little information they had about the Valdren Imperium. Based on Morrison's sensor data, their technology is significantly more advanced than ours. Their smallest ships have more firepower than our largest battleships. If they decided to invade Earth, we couldn't stop them. The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Humanity had always imagined meeting aliens as equals, or perhaps as the more advanced species. Nobody had planned for being the primitive newcomers. "So what do we do?" asked Chancellor Schmidt from the European Federation. "Do we accept their offer?" "Absolutely not," Martinez said firmly. The strength in her voice surprised even herself. "I didn't become president to hand over Earth's independence to the first aliens who offered us a deal." "With respect, Madam President," said Ambassador Cole from the African Union, "what choice do we have? If they're as powerful as the reports say, refusing them could be dangerous." Martinez walked to the window, looking out at the Earth below. Billions of people going about their lives completely unaware that everything had just changed. My grandfather told me a story once. During the old wars, his country was occupied by a stronger power. They could have accepted it, made peace, and lived under foreign rule. Instead, they resisted. It took years and it cost lives, but eventually they won their freedom back. He told me that freedom isn't something you accept or reject based on convenience. It's something you fight for no matter the cost. She turned back to face the council. "I'm not saying we go to war with these Valdren. I'm saying we don't bow our heads just because they're stronger. We deal with them as equals, and if they don't like it, that's their problem." Rivera pulled up more data. Morrison mentioned that the station had dozens of different species. That means the Valdren Empire isn't made up of just one species. It's an alliance or a federation. If that's true, then they need members more than they're letting on. "A good point," Martinez agreed. "Empires that rule through force don't need to offer protection. They just take what they want. But empires that rule through politics and economics need willing participants. That gives us leverage." Ellen Baker, the chief diplomatic advisor, spoke up. "I recommend we send Morrison new orders. He should gather as much information as possible about the empire's structure, its weaknesses, and its rival powers. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we make any decisions." "Agreed," Martinez said. "But we also need to prepare Earth. Rivera, I want every military installation on full alert. Not because we're expecting an attack, but because we need to show strength. Start working with the Science Division on upgrades to our ships using any technology data Morrison can send us." "What about the public?" asked Minister Okafor from the Southern Coalition. "Do we tell people about this?" Martinez thought about it. Keeping it secret would be easier in the short term, but secrets always came out eventually. And when they did, people would be angry about being kept in the dark. "We tell them the truth, all of it. Humanity deserves to know we're not alone, and they deserve to have a say in how we respond." 2 hours later, Martinez addressed the world. The broadcast went out to every country, translated into every major language. She stood in the same chamber where the United Earth Council had been formed 20 years earlier, a symbol of humanity coming together. "Citizens of Earth, I have news that will change our world forever. 3 days ago, one of our exploration vessels made contact with an alien civilization. Not just one species, but many. They have formed what they call the Valdren Imperium, an alliance that spans over 200 star systems. She paused, letting people process that information. Around the world, people stopped what they were doing. They gathered around screens, listening in disbelief. These aliens have offered us membership in their empire. They promise protection, advanced technology, and access to galactic trade. In exchange, they ask us to follow their laws and open our borders to their control. Another pause. We have declined their offer. The reaction was immediate and mixed. Some people cheered. Others panicked. Social media exploded with opinions, fears, and excitement. Martinez continued. Some of you may think this is reckless. Some may believe we should accept any help we can get. But I ask you to remember who we are. Humanity didn't become the dominant species on Earth by accepting the first offer that came along. We became great by making our own choices, taking our own risks, and standing on our own feet. She leaned forward, speaking directly into the camera. We will not be ruled by fear. We will engage with this galactic community as equals, not as subordinates. We will trade with those who treat us fairly. We will learn from those willing to teach, and we will defend ourselves if necessary. This is not a declaration of war. This is a declaration of independence. We didn't spend 10,000 years building civilization just to hand it over to someone else. The stars belong to everyone, and we will take our place among them with dignity and strength. The broadcast ended. Martinez sat down heavily in her chair, suddenly exhausted. Baker approached with a tablet. Initial reactions are coming in. 73% approval rating for your speech. The rest are split between people who think you're being too aggressive and people who think you're not being aggressive enough. Can't please everyone, Martinez muttered. Send the new orders to Morrison. Tell him we're backing his play. No treaties, no agreements, just information gathering and relationship building with other species. Back on station quarters, Jake Morrison received the new orders in his quarters. He read them 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. Earth was supporting him. More than that, Earth was taking the same stance he had recommended. Don't submit, don't attack, just stand firm. He called Amy and Greg to his room. New orders just came in. Earth says no to the Valdrin offer. They want us to stay here, learn everything we can, and make friends with other species. Greg grinned. So we're spies now? More like diplomats, Amy corrected. This is actually exciting. We're the first humans to do real alien diplomacy. It's also dangerous, Jake warned. The Valdrin aren't going to be happy about this. We need to be smart and careful. The next morning, Jake requested another meeting with High Commissioner Velrain. She arrived looking confident, probably expecting the humans to have reconsidered. Captain Morrison, have you consulted with your government? We have, Jake replied. Earth appreciates the introduction to Galactic society and the information you've provided about the Valdrin Imperium. Velrain smiled. Excellent. Then you're ready to discuss membership terms? Actually, no. Earth has decided to remain independent at this time. We're interested in establishing diplomatic relations with many species, including the Valdrin, but we're not interested in joining any empire. The smile froze on Velrain's face. I don't think you understand. This region of space falls under Valdrin authority. Species operating here must have imperial approval. Or what? Amy asked bluntly. Velrain's pleasant expression cracked. Or they face the consequences of independence. Trade embargoes, lack of protection from hostile forces, territorial disputes with aggressive species. The galaxy is not kind to those who stand alone. Jake stood up. Commissioner, with all due respect, those sound like threats. And if you're threatening us, then your offer of friendship wasn't genuine to begin with. We'll take our chances on our own. He walked toward the door with Amy and Greg following. Behind them, Velrain sat in stunned silence. In her 300 years of service, she had never had a species refuse the Empire. It simply wasn't done. As the humans left, they could hear Valdrin officials talking in urgent tones. The new species had said no. The primitives had rejected the Empire's protection. This was unprecedented. In the corridors, other aliens had heard what happened. Some looked at the humans with new respect. Others seemed worried. A few appeared almost excited, like they were watching something entertaining. Cross, the reptilian merchant, fell into step beside them. I heard you told Velrain to shove her offer. Is this true? More or less, Jake admitted. Cross's laugh sounded like rocks grinding together. Magnificent. The Valdrin have grown fat and lazy, thinking everyone will bow to them. It's good to see someone with spine. If you need anything, come find me. I like doing business with people who aren't afraid. As they walked back to their quarters, Greg shook his head. "Captain, we—" Part 4 news of humanity's rejection spread through station quarters like fire through dry grass. Within hours, every species on the station knew about the new aliens who had refused the Valdrin Imperium. Most thought the humans were insane. A few thought they were brave. Everyone wanted to meet them. Jake Morrison decided that if they were going to make waves, they should make them count. He authorized his crew to explore the station freely, learn everything they could, and make contact with other species. No more hiding, no more being cautious. Humanity was here, and they weren't going to apologize for it. Danny Price spent most of his time in the commercial district, a massive section of the station where merchants sold everything from food to starship parts. His engineering mind was overwhelmed with possibilities. Every shop had technology that Earth didn't possess. Better engines, stronger materials, more efficient power systems. He stopped at a stall run by a species that looked like walking crystals. They chimed when they moved, making musical sounds. "Excuse me, but what kind of power source does that device use?" The crystal being turned, refracting light in rainbow patterns. "This is a standard plasma converter. Very basic technology. Are you interested in purchasing?" "How much?" Danny asked. The merchant named a price that meant nothing to Danny. Humans didn't have galactic currency yet. "I don't have money, but I might have something to trade. What if I could show you a different way to route power through crystal matrices, something you might not have seen before?" The merchant's chiming changed pitch, sounding interested. "You have technical knowledge to trade?" For the next hour, Danny and the crystal merchant exchanged ideas. Danny learned about plasma conversion efficiency, and the merchant learned about human approaches to energy storage. By the end, Danny had permission to examine several devices, and the merchant had new concepts to experiment with. "You humans are strange," the merchant chimed. "Most new species come here to buy and beg. You come to trade knowledge as equals. I approve." Danny visited a dozen more shops that day. Each time he offered knowledge in exchange for the chance to study alien technology. Most merchants agreed, curious about human ideas. By evening, Danny had filled 3 data drives with technical specifications and had made friends with engineers from 6 different species. Meanwhile, Amy Peterson focused on gathering intelligence. She visited the station's public records office, where information about galactic history was available to anyone. The Valdrin librarian seemed surprised when a human walked in. "I want to learn about the Valdrin Imperium," Amy said. "Its history, its structure, everything." The librarian, whose name was Kelvin, gestured to a vast collection of data crystals. "That information would take years to absorb. Perhaps you should start with a basic overview." "I'll start anywhere you recommend," Amy replied. Kelvin helped her access the records. As Amy read through the historical data, patterns emerged. The Valdrin Imperium was 3,000 years old, but it hadn't always been an empire. It started as a defensive alliance between 3 species who were being attacked by raiders. Over time, more species joined for protection. Eventually, the alliance became so large that it started making demands instead of offers. "This is fascinating," Amy said. "So the empire used to be voluntary?" "It still is, technically," Kelvin replied. "Species can leave if they wish, but the process is complicated and few succeed. The empire has ways of making independence costly." Amy noticed something else in the records. The empire's borders had stayed roughly the same size for the past 500 years. They weren't expanding anymore. Why hasn't the empire grown recently? Kelvin looked uncomfortable. "That's a complex political question. Perhaps you should ask a historian instead of a librarian." But Amy understood. The empire had reached its limits. It couldn't grow larger without overextending itself. That's why they wanted new species to join willingly. Forced conquest would be too expensive and difficult. She thanked Kelvin and left, her mind racing with ideas. The Valdrin weren't nearly as powerful as they wanted everyone to believe. They were managing their empire carefully, trying to look stronger than they actually were. It was all a game of perception. Greg Hayes took a different approach. He spent his time watching how security worked on the station. He noted where guards were posted, how often they changed shifts, and what kind of weapons they carried. Not because he planned to fight, but because understanding security told you a lot about what people feared. He noticed that most of the guards were focused on preventing theft and stopping fights between different species. Very few were positioned to defend against external threats. That suggested the station felt safe from outside attack. The Empire's reputation was its real defense. Greg also noticed something interesting. Several species on the station seemed to avoid Valdran officials. They would change direction when they saw the blue-skinned aliens coming. That suggested fear, or at least strong dislike. The Empire might have members, but not all of them were happy about it. He approached one of these species, a short furry being with large eyes. "Excuse me, I'm new here. Can I ask you a question?" The furry alien looked nervous. "You're one of the humans. The ones who refused the Empire, that's right. I noticed you avoid Valdran officials. Why is that?" The alien glanced around, making sure no one was listening. "My people joined the Empire 200 years ago. We were told it would bring prosperity and protection. Instead, we lost control of our trade routes and Valdran corporations took over our best industries. We're members of the Empire, but we're not partners. We're subordinates, can't you leave?" Greg asked. "The exit process requires approval from the Imperial Council. They've denied our requests 5 times. We're trapped." The alien looked at Greg with something like hope in its large eyes. "Is it true that your people said no to them?" "It's true. Then you're either very brave or very foolish. I hope for your sake it's the first one." That evening, Jake gathered his crew in their quarters. Danny brought his technical data. Amy brought her historical research. Greg brought his security observations. Together they compiled everything into a report for Earth. "The Valdran Imperium is a paper tiger," Amy concluded. "They look scary, but they're actually stretched thin. They need new members more than new members need them. Their technology is advanced but not magical," Danny added. "We can catch up if we study hard and trade smart. I've already made contacts with engineers who are willing to teach us. And their control isn't as tight as they claim," Greg finished. "Half their members are unhappy. If we can avoid joining, other species might follow our example." Jake composed a message to Earth with all this information. He ended it with a recommendation. "Don't be intimidated. Stand firm. The galaxy is watching to see if humans can be pushed around. Show them we can't." The next day, High Commissioner Velrain requested another meeting. This time her tone was different. Less confident, more calculating. "Captain Morrison, I may have been too aggressive in our last conversation. The Valdran Imperium values all species whether they're members or not. We would like to establish a formal diplomatic relationship with Earth, even if you don't wish to join us." Jake recognized a tactical retreat when he saw one. "What kind of relationship?" "Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, perhaps a human embassy here on the station. We can work together without formal membership." "That sounds reasonable," Jake said carefully. "We'll need to discuss terms with our government, of course." "Of course," Velrain agreed. "Take your time." "We're patient." After she left, Amy whispered. She backed down. "They're actually backing down." "Don't celebrate yet," Jake warned. "They're regrouping." "But this is a good sign. It means they're not willing to use force, at least not yet." Over the next week, the humans on station quarters became local celebrities. Other species wanted to meet them, trade with them, and learn about Earth. The novelty of a species that had refused the Empire was fascinating to everyone. A delegation from a species called the Telkari invited Jake to dinner. They were an independent species that had managed to avoid joining the Empire through a combination of useful neutrality and strategic location. Their representative, a tall being with purple skin and forearms, offered advice. "The key to independence is being useful without being controllable," the Telkari explained. "Trade with everyone. Make friends with many species. Become a place where different factions can meet on neutral ground. The Valdran can't force you to join if doing so would upset too many other species." "That's smart," Jake said. "How long have you been independent?" 800 years. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. We control our own destiny." Jake filed that information away. Earth could learn from species like the Telkari. Independence wasn't about being strong enough to fight everyone. It was about being valuable enough that fighting you would cost more than it was worth. Back on Earth, President Martinez was coordinating a massive effort. Every scientist, engineer, and diplomat was working on the same goal: prepare humanity for life among the stars. Not as subordinates, not as newcomers, but as equals, ships were being upgraded with new technology based on Danny's reports. Diplomats were studying galactic law and customs. Military strategists were developing doctrines for space combat just in case. And across the planet, ordinary. Part 5. 3 months after the Liberty's accidental discovery, everything had changed. Earth launched 5 new ships. each one incorporating technology that Danny Price and his team had learned from their alien contacts. The ships weren't as advanced as Valdran vessels, but they were faster and tougher than anything humanity had built before. Leading this small fleet was Ambassador Kate Phillips, aboard a ship called the Defiance. The name had been chosen carefully. It sent a message that humanity intended to stand on its own terms. Kate was a career diplomat who had negotiated treaties on Earth for 20 years. She was smart, patient, and absolutely fearless when it came to protecting her people's interests. President Martinez had chosen her specifically because she wouldn't be intimidated by alien empires. When the Defiance and its escort ships arrived at station quarters, every species on the station came out to watch. The arrival of an official human delegation was big news. The humans who had refused the Valdran were back, and this time they had brought reinforcements. Jake Morrison met Kate at the docking bay. They shook hands, both grinning at the familiar gesture in such an alien place. "Captain Morrison, your reports have been very helpful," Kate said. "Earth owes you a debt." "Just doing my job, Ambassador. Though I'll admit the job got more interesting than I expected." Kate looked around at the massive station, at the aliens watching them, at the ships from 100 different worlds moving through space. "This is incredible. And we're really going to do business here as equals?" "That's the plan," Jake confirmed. "Let me introduce you to some people who can help." Over the next week, Kate established Earth's first official diplomatic presence in the galaxy. She opened an embassy on station quarters, a modest office that served as humanity's foothold among the stars. The location was chosen carefully, in a section of the station where independent species had their offices, not where Valdran officials worked. Kate met with representatives from dozens of species. Some were curious about Earth. Others wanted to establish trade relationships. A few were clearly testing humanity, trying to figure out if the humans were serious about independence or just making noise. The Telkari were among the first to sign a formal agreement with Earth. It was a simple trade deal, exchanging Earth's agricultural products for Telkari-manufactured goods. But it was more than commerce. It was a statement. Earth could make deals without Valdran permission. Cross, the reptilian merchant who had befriended the humans early on, helped Kate navigate the complex world of galactic trade. "The key is to trade with many partners, not just one," he explained. "If you depend on a single species or faction, they control you. But if you have 20 trading partners, no single one can pressure you." Kate took that advice seriously. Within a month, Earth had trade agreements with 15 different species. Some deals were small, just test runs to see if the relationship would work. Others were more substantial. But each one added to Earth's growing network of contacts. Not everyone was happy about this. The Valdran watched with growing concern as humans built relationships across the station. High Commissioner Velrain called Kate to a meeting. "Ambassador Phillips, we need to discuss your activities," Velrain said, her tone carefully neutral. "What activities?" Kate asked innocently. "You're establishing trade relationships without consulting the Empire. You're making agreements that could affect regional stability." Kate smiled politely. "We're engaging in free commerce with willing partners. I wasn't aware that required Imperial permission." "Everything in this sector requires Imperial oversight," Velrain insisted. "That's how we maintain order and prevent conflicts." "Or how you maintain control," Kate replied, her smile never wavering. "Commissioner, Earth respects the Valdran Imperium and has no desire for conflict. But we won't ask permission to conduct legitimate business. If that's a problem, perhaps we should discuss why you feel threatened by peaceful trade." Velrain's expression hardened. "We're not threatened. We're concerned about stability. Then you have nothing to worry about. Earth is contributing to stability by building positive relationships throughout the region." The meeting ended without agreement, but Kate had made her point. Humanity wouldn't back down, but they also weren't looking for a fight. They were simply acting like any other independent species. Back on Earth, the first alien visitors arrived. They came on trade missions, cultural exchanges, and simple curiosity. The Telkari sent a delegation to tour Earth's cities. The crystal species that Danny had befriended came to study human engineering approaches. Even a few Valdran came, though they kept their distance from official events. People on Earth had mixed reactions to alien visitors. Some were excited and welcoming. Others were nervous. A few were hostile, worried about what these aliens might want from humanity. But overall, the response was positive. Humans had spent their entire existence wondering if they were alone, and now they knew they weren't. President Martinez made sure that alien visitors saw Earth at its best. They toured museums, attended cultural performances, and met with scientists and artists. The message was clear. Earth was a sophisticated civilization with rich culture and advanced capabilities. Not primitives waiting to be uplifted, but equals ready to contribute. One particular incident became famous across the galaxy. A group of Valdran officials visited Earth and expected to be treated with great deference. Instead, they were given a standard diplomatic reception, no better or worse than visitors from any other species. When they complained about not receiving special treatment, Martinez personally explained that on Earth all visitors were treated equally. "We don't have an empire to impress," she told them. "We have a civilization to represent." The story spread throughout the galactic community. The humans had treated Valdran officials like ordinary diplomats. It was seen as either incredibly bold or incredibly rude, depending on who was telling the story. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison was promoted to admiral and given command of Earth's expanding space fleet. His first assignment was to explore regions beyond Valdran territory, making contact with species the Empire didn't control. Lisa Chen, now his navigation officer on the new flagship Endeavor, plotted courses to distant systems. Danny Price supervised engineering on the entire fleet. Amy Peterson became Earth's chief xenologist, studying alien cultures and advising diplomats. Greg Hayes commanded the security forces that protected human interests in space. The crew that had accidentally discovered the galaxy was now leading humanity's expansion into it. On one of their exploration missions, they encountered a species called the Korvax, living in a region the Valdran claimed but didn't control. The Korvax were struggling, their resources depleted and their ships outdated. When they learned that humans were independent of the Empire, they asked for help. "We want what you have," the Korvax leader said. "Freedom from imperial pressure. But we're weak. How can we resist?" Jake thought carefully before answering. "You don't need to be strong to be free. You need to be determined. And you need friends. Earth will trade with you, share technology, and support your independence. Not because we want something from you, but because we believe every species deserves self-determination." Earth's support helped the Korvax strengthen their position. They upgraded their ships, improved their economy, and successfully resisted Valdran pressure to join the Empire. It was a small victory, but it sent a powerful message. The humans weren't just independent themselves. They were helping others achieve independence too. This worried the Valdran leadership greatly. Supreme Chancellor Draven called an emergency council meeting. Velrain and other officials argued about how to handle the human problem. "They're undermining our authority," Velrain insisted. "If we don't stop them, other species will follow their example." But Draven saw the situation differently. "The humans have exposed a weakness we didn't want to acknowledge. Our empire is held together by fear and dependency, not genuine loyalty. Perhaps it's time we changed our approach." "You can't be serious," another official protested. "If we stop demanding submission, the empire will fall apart." "Or," Draven said thoughtfully, "it might become stronger. An alliance of willing partners is more stable than a collection of subordinates. The humans have shown us that. Perhaps we should learn from them instead of fighting them." Not everyone agreed, but Draven's position as Supreme Chancellor gave him authority. Over the following months, the Valdran began changing their policies. They offered some member species more autonomy. They reduced some of their more oppressive regulations. They even opened diplomatic relations with a few independent species they had previously ignored. It wasn't a complete transformation, and many Valdran officials resisted the changes. But the Empire was evolving, pushed by the example humanity had set. Kate Phillips watched these changes with satisfaction. "We didn't set out to reform the Valdran Imperium," she told Jake during a visit to the Endeavor. "We just wanted to maintain our independence. But by standing firm, we've changed the whole dynamic." "Think it'll last?" Jake asked. "Who knows? Empires are complicated things. But I think we've proven that you don't have to be the biggest or the strongest to matter. You just have to be willing to stand up for yourself." 3 years after first contact, Earth had become a respected member of the Galactic.